Previously on Legends of Aelos, we return to KDL looking up quizzically at Martisan, still unrecognized by her, in reaction to his last exclamation. Martisan continues the brief conversation and persuades KDL to let him have the opportunity to prove the loot's worth by demonstrating his prowess with it. It isn't but a few words into the song that the party begins to feel the tension grow thick, as it specifically taunts KTL with its message in rhyme. KTL is seemingly off-put by the bard spell, but does not appear to fall under its influence, and Martisan realizes this. As the Fated Five sit by watching the situation play out, noticing weapons, movements, and expressions, the bard strikes a thunderous chord, and combat ensues. The party members proper begin preparing actions to fight, but do not initially act in a final attempt to prevent bloodshed. Hopes of defusing are erased though, as KDL sets a blast of fire towards Martisan, and Karun, who has raised his hand to grab onto KDL in a vain attempt to stop her, reacts instinctively. As Martisan is engulfed, the necrotic energies leech from his hand to her arm, ravaging it. Her lackeys retaliate, and Karun is struck heavily, but Asher follows up with a swipe at KTL's arm, severing it as she collapses to the floor and tends to Karun's wounds with a healing word. Rowan goes for the fallen KTL, seeking to stabilize her despite her mortal wounds, while the remainder of the party continues the quick and brutal fight. After combat ends, Ace grabs Martisan by the throat and interrogates him on his actions. Martisan informs the party of how serious the situation is, as Briar discovers the mark of the shadowed hand tattooed upon the chest of KTL. The group takes the time to ponder their situation, confirm that KTL is in fact deceased, and that the staff of the treasured booty have all left the room, likely sheltered in the cellar, and as a result, they are happened upon by a town guardsman. The guard turns out not to be a concern of the party though, as from behind him, 3 individuals, all dressed in garb similar to each other, as well as KTL. The apparent leader, a tall, masculine, brutish man with tusked teeth and a skull adorned as a masked helmet, addresses the group as to what has happened here. Fortunately, before their entrance, Ace and Rowan had been able to escape out the front of the building and proceed to scale up the roof to set up for an overwatch of what is transpiring inside. The skull-masked man, armed with a glaive of sorts, comes off surprisingly cavalier at first. He speaks as though the individuals of his organization that lay there at his feet are nothing of concern or consequence. That is, save for KTL. He continues on about how he believes in fairness, and what is fair here is the notion of an eye for an eye, a life for a life, and from his perspective, it is he who is owed a life. The party tries to persuade that Martisan is the one who had exacerbated the situation, but Martisan is presently unconscious on the floor, and is confirmed as dead by the Shadowed Hand member upon inspection. Seeing as it is their word alone, he cannot take it as viable justice for him, as he also points out the wounds that are upon KTL's body. To the group inside, the situation looks to be inescapable without sacrifice. But before Asher and Karun could step forward, Briar suddenly offers herself up. The party protests, but it is Ace and Rowan who act, as the skull-masked man, who needs only the life and cares not for the semantics of it, raises his glaive to strike. Ace and Rowan make landfall over Briar, protecting her from a killing blow, as the 2 other Shadowed Hand members take up perch in the rafters and ready attacks. Ace insists, if it to be anyone, it should be him, and before much else could be done, the skull-masked man obliges. The glaive pierces down hard, repeatedly, Ace taking the onslaught as best he could against the magic weapon, but the brutish assassin is intent and proficient, and Ace is slain. The skull-masked man's eyes turn to Rowan. "We're done here," he says, and he and his cohorts leave the building the way they entered, through the back. The party is distraught, lamenting over their fallen friend as a cloaked figure enters the establishment to the front. The hood of the cloak lowers as the face of Jathril Marin is revealed. Rowan cries out and Jathril joins them, a bittersweet reunion. Amidst this, Martison awakens as his feigned death effects fade, to which the group obviously accuses him for all that has transpired. He eventually slips away as the party are distracted by their plight. The group struggles with how to handle this, implores Jathril to try anything, but unfortunately, he is incapable of such feats. Eventually, Karun, in desperation near delirium, he remembers the priestess in the streets and thinks to run off to seek aid from her. The priestess, named Kalandra, is in the same area as she was last seen, though now she is staring towards Heron as he smokes a cigarette, a perplexed look upon her face as Karun approaches her. She turns and begins to approach him, but then proceeds past him towards the treasured booty. He stops her for a moment to confirm what seems apparent. She is already on a path she knows she must follow, without Karun even needing to beckon her. She and Karun return to the group, and they, plus Jathril, carry the body of Ace to the temple, and there they lay him upon the altar as Kalandra prepares to resurrect the fallen barbarian, using a massive diamond that she has in her possession. At first, there seems to be no effect, but Karun believes he knows why, as a sinister voice echoes inside his mind still. He takes leave from the temple, and at his departure, the priestess is in fact able to do her holy work. And it's through this divine miracle our friend Ace is brought back to the world of the living. As he awakens and Karun is brought back inside by Rowan, he begins to speak to the party about what happened to him, as the group begins to notice a change in his disposition. He recalls falling into darkness and arising in the light, visions of his mother, and upon awakening, he has come to determine that there is a regret that he would have had he not returned. That regret being never having let his friends know who he really was. At this, he removes his bandages in front of everyone, and Dominicus introduces himself, a bearded brunette man whose now exposed right eye glows a vibrant blue. The party embraces in reunion, overjoyed that they are now all reunited and live once again. And after all that has transpired, they collectively elect to do something far more normal and mundane, and the party sets off to the Broken Thorn for food and to settle down for the evening. Over dinner, Jathril recounts what had transpired, mounting to he and Rowan's unfortunate separation. Rowan is quick to forgive. All he wants is to return to what was between he and Jathril, and the first thing for that is to begin training once more, early in the morning, as they did before. And it's from here we shall continue the story of the Legends of Aelos.